Imagine this. It's 2:17 in the morning. You've stayed late at work trying to finish a project, and now you're the only person left in the building. The office is completely silent. No keyboards, no conversations, just the soft buzzing of fluorescent lights above your head. You pack your bag, switch off your computer, and start walking toward the elevator. As you're passing one of the empty hallways, something catches your attention. A room you've never seen before. That's strange. You've worked here for 3 years. You know every hallway, every meeting room, every emergency exit. Yet somehow, this room has never been here before. Curiosity gets the better of you. You take one step inside, then another. The lights flicker. For just a split second, everything goes black. When the lights come back on, the hallway behind you is gone. The elevator, gone. The windows, gone. Every exit, gone. You're standing in an endless maze of yellow rooms. The air smells damp, almost like old carpet that's been wet for years. The lights above you buzz louder than before. You reach for your phone. No signal. You try calling someone anyway. Nothing. Then, from somewhere far away, you hear footsteps. Slow, heavy, getting closer. You run, corner after corner, room after room, but something doesn't make sense. Every hallway looks exactly the same. You stop, trying to remember which way you came. That's when you realize something terrifying. You've already forgotten. Welcome to the Backrooms. If you've ever found yourself awake long after midnight, scrolling through strange corners of the internet, looking for mysteries that leave you questioning reality, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Midnight Echo. This is where we dive into the internet's darkest legends, unexplained mysteries, and the stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. And tonight, we're exploring one of the most unsettling places ever imagined. A place with no windows, no exits, no way of knowing how long you've been trapped. Just endless yellow hallways, buzzing fluorescent lights, and the terrifying feeling that something is always just around the next corner. It's called the Backrooms. For years, people have argued over what the Backrooms really are. Some say it's just an internet horror story. Others believe it's one of the greatest collaborative myths ever created. And then there are those who wonder, what if reality isn't as solid as we think it is? What if, somewhere in the world, there's a place where the rules simply stop working, where one wrong step, one impossible mistake, could send you somewhere you'll never escape? Tonight, we're diving deep into the hidden lore, disturbing theories, and forgotten details behind the Backrooms. Some of these facts are surprisingly believable. Others are deeply unsettling. But by the end of this video, you might never look at an empty office building the same way again. So dim the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't lean against the walls. Let's begin. Chapter 1. One picture started everything. Every massive story has an origin. Harry Potter had a book. Star Wars had a movie. The Backrooms, it had one photograph. That's it. One ordinary-looking picture uploaded to the internet in 2019. No special effects, no editing, no monster hiding in the background, just an empty office. And somehow, that was enough, because there was something deeply unsettling about it. If I showed you the picture without any context, you probably wouldn't scream. You'd probably say, "That's weird," but then you'd keep looking and looking, trying to figure out why it feels so wrong. That's because the image does something horror movies rarely manage to achieve. It convinces your brain that you've been there before. Maybe not that exact room, but somewhere almost identical. The wallpaper, the cheap ceiling tiles, the harsh fluorescent lights, the endless beige walls. Almost everyone has visited a place like that at some point in their lives. An old office, a forgotten conference center, an abandoned school hallway, a hotel that seemed just a little too empty. That's exactly why the image became so powerful. It wasn't showing something impossible. It was showing something almost real. Then came the paragraph underneath it. Just a few sentences. It described a terrifying idea. What if reality isn't perfect? What if every once in a while, the world glitches? And if you're unlucky enough to be standing in exactly the wrong place, you don't die, you don't teleport, you simply slip through reality itself. That idea spread across the internet like wildfire, not because people believed it was real, but because it felt like it could be. And that's a very dangerous kind of horror, the kind your imagination keeps alive long after you've closed the video. Reality isn't supposed to break, but what if it does? Here's something people don't usually think about. Every day, we trust reality without questioning it. We trust that walls are solid, that gravity works, that when we open a door, the room behind it will still be there. But what if, just once, reality failed? Think about dreams for a second. Have you ever dreamed about a place that felt completely familiar, even though you've never actually seen it before? A school that doesn't exist, a neighborhood you've never visited, a house you've somehow lived in your entire life, inside the dream. Your brain creates believable places all the time. The Backrooms feel exactly like that, a memory that doesn't belong to you. Some fans even have a theory. What if the Backrooms aren't another dimension at all? What if they're the places our brains invent while we dream? Places that were never supposed to exist anywhere, until somehow they did. It's only a theory, but the fact that people are still coming up with new explanations years later proves one thing. The mystery is far more powerful than any answer could ever be. And just when the internet thought it had figured out the Backrooms, people discovered something even stranger. Because those endless yellow hallways aren't actually the entire Backrooms. They're only the beginning. Chapter 2. The first place everyone knows, but almost nobody understands. If you've ever seen anything about the Backrooms before, you've probably seen Level 0. The endless yellow hallways, the stained carpet, the buzzing fluorescent lights. It's become one of the most recognizable horror images on the internet. But here's what most people don't realize. Level 0 isn't scary because of what's inside it. It's scary because of what it slowly does to you. Imagine waking up there, not after a few minutes, not after an hour. Imagine you've been walking for 2 days. No sunrise, no sunset, no clocks, no windows. You have absolutely no way of knowing how much time has passed. The only thing that tells you time is your own exhaustion. At first, you'd probably stay calm. You'd tell yourself there has to be an exit somewhere. Maybe another hallway, maybe a stairwell, maybe an emergency door. After all, every building has an exit, right? Except this one doesn't. You walk another hour, then another. Every hallway looks almost identical. Every room feels familiar. Sometimes you swear you've already been there, but the wallpaper is slightly different, or the lights are arranged in another pattern, or the carpet has a stain you don't remember seeing before. It's just different enough to make you question your own memory, and that's when the real horror begins. Your brain is your greatest enemy. Here's something that's actually based on real psychology. Human beings are terrible at dealing with environments that never change. When our brains don't receive enough new information, they start creating their own. It's one of the reasons people stranded alone for long periods sometimes report hearing voices or seeing movement that isn't really there. The Backrooms take this idea to the extreme. Picture yourself walking, hour after hour. Every room is the same color. Every light makes the exact same humming sound. Nothing changes. Your brain starts searching for patterns. You begin noticing shapes in the wallpaper, faces in the stains on the ceiling. You could swear someone just walked past the end of the hallway. You run toward it, only to find another empty room. Was there someone there, or did your mind invent them? After enough time, you honestly wouldn't know. And maybe that's exactly what the Backrooms want. The buzzing that never ends. Let's talk about those lights, because believe it or not, the buzzing fluorescent lights have become almost as famous as the yellow walls themselves. At first, the sound wouldn't bother you. You've probably heard fluorescent lights before. Schools, hospitals, office buildings, supermarkets. It's a completely normal sound for the first hour. But imagine hearing that same electrical buzz every second, every minute, every hour, without interruption, no silence, ever. Eventually, something strange happens. Your brain stops treating it like background noise. Instead, it becomes impossible to ignore. You start listening to it. Then you start hearing tiny changes. Was that buzzing, or did someone whisper? You stop walking. Everything becomes silent, except the lights. You wait. Nothing. You keep walking again. A few minutes later, you hear it once more. Your name, softly, almost hidden beneath the electrical hum. You spin around. Nobody's there. But your heart doesn't believe your eyes, because once your brain starts expecting danger, it finds danger everywhere. You can't trust your own memory. Now imagine trying to retrace your steps. Simple enough, right? Just turn around. Except, there isn't really a back. According to many versions of the lore, Level 0 doesn't follow the normal rules of geometry. The hallway you walked through 5 minutes ago might not exist anymore. Doors can disappear. Rooms can change. Entire sections of the building seem to rearrange themselves when nobody is looking. Think about that for a second. Not only are you lost, the map itself refuses to stay the same. It's like trying to escape a maze that's rebuilding itself every time you blink. No matter how carefully you remember your route, it doesn't matter, because the route has already changed. And if that wasn't enough, some fans believe Level 0 is actually alive. Not alive in the traditional sense, but aware. Almost like the building itself is watching every person trapped inside it, separating them, confusing them, leading them deeper and deeper into its endless corridors. Is there proof? No. But when thousands of people independently imagine the same unsettling idea, it's hard not to wonder why. The loneliest place imaginable. Now let me ask you something. What's more terrifying? Being chased by a monster, or never seeing another person again? Most horror movies rely on something chasing the main character. The Backrooms do the opposite. They isolate you. Some versions of the lore even suggest that if two people enter the Backrooms together, they'll be separated almost instantly. Imagine hearing your best friend shout your name from another hallway. You answer back. They respond. The voice sounds close, maybe only one room away. You start running. Left, right, another corner. The voice keeps calling. It sounds even closer now. You sprint as fast as you can, but every hallway leads to another empty room. Eventually, the voice stops. Was your friend ever really there? Or was level 0 simply giving you hope before taking it away? That's the kind of question that stays with you. Not because there's an answer, but because there probably isn't. But what if level 0 is only a waiting room? Everything we've talked about so far has happened in just one level. Level 0, the place almost everyone recognizes. But according to the ever-growing lore, it's only the entrance, a lobby, a waiting room before something much stranger begins. Because beyond these yellow hallways, there are flooded swimming pools stretching into infinity, hotels with no guests, entire cities without a single resident, and places so bizarre that many fans actually think the original Backrooms are the safest place of them all. And trust me, once you see what's waiting beyond level 0, you might actually wish you were back in those yellow hallways. Chapter 3. The hallways aren't the Backrooms. They're only the front door. For years, most people believed the Backrooms were nothing more than endless yellow offices. In fact, if you search Backrooms online today, that's probably the first image you'll see. But according to the expanding lore, those familiar hallways are only level 0, the point where almost everyone arrives. If that's true, then one unsettling question follows. If there's a level 0, where are the other levels? As thousands of fans began expanding the universe, they imagined places that obeyed even fewer rules than the yellow maze. Some were hostile, some were strangely peaceful, and some felt as though they had been copied from fragments of human memory. Not buildings that were designed, but buildings that were remembered incorrectly. The pool rooms. Why peace can be more frightening than fear. Imagine opening a door expecting another office hallway. Instead, you're greeted by the gentle sound of water. Warm air brushes against your face. The harsh yellow walls are gone. In their place are white tiles, pale blue pools, and soft lights reflecting across perfectly still water. There are no alarms, no monsters, no buzzing lights. For the first time since arriving, you can actually hear yourself breathe. It almost feels like you've escaped. This place has become known online as the pool rooms, and it's one of the most recognizable liminal spaces ever created. At first glance, it looks comforting. Some people have even said they'd rather be trapped here than in level 0. But after staring at these images for a while, another feeling begins to creep in. Why is there nobody here? Who keeps the lights on? Why is the water so perfectly clean? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, how far do these pools actually go? Because no matter where you look, there never seems to be an end. Every doorway reveals another room. Every room reveals another pool. Every reflection looks almost identical to the last. Some versions of the lore describe the pool rooms as one of the safer places in the Backrooms. Others suggest that people who wander too far simply never return. No one knows which version is true. Maybe that's what makes the pool rooms so memorable. They're not frightening because of what you can see. They're frightening because of everything you can't. Almond water, the resource that shouldn't exist. Survival in the Backrooms raises an obvious question. How does anyone stay alive? If there are no supermarkets, no restaurants, no rivers, how do people survive for weeks, months, or even years? According to many stories, the answer is something called almond water. It's exactly what it sounds like, a clear liquid with a faint almond scent. But unlike ordinary water, it's said to calm panic, restore energy, and help people recover from exhaustion. It's one of the most valuable resources in many versions of the lore. And yet, no one knows where it comes from. There are no factories, no bottling plants, no workers. Sometimes bottles are found sitting neatly on dusty shelves. Other times they appear in abandoned storage rooms, as if someone had placed them there only moments before. Who leaves them? No one knows. Some fans believe other survivors stockpile supplies for strangers they'll never meet. Others think the backrooms themselves somehow produce almond water. If that's true, it raises an unsettling possibility. What if the place trapping you is also the thing keeping you alive? Are you really alone? One of the biggest misconceptions about the backrooms is that they're completely empty. Depending on which version of the lore you read, that isn't always the case. Some stories describe scattered groups of survivors who have managed to adapt. They map hallways, trade supplies, and share information about dangerous areas. Imagine spending years inside the backrooms. Eventually, those yellow walls would stop feeling impossible. They'd become familiar. You'd learn which corridors to avoid, which rooms were safe enough to sleep in. You might even stop thinking about escape altogether. For someone born in the backrooms, a possibility imagined in some fan stories, the outside world wouldn't be home. It would be the myth. But isolation still defines the experience. Settlements, if they exist at all, are said to be separated by vast stretches of empty space. You could walk for days without meeting another person. In a place that seems endless, even finding another human becomes an extraordinary event. What if the backrooms remember you? Among the many fan theories, one stands out for how unsettling it is. What if the backrooms aren't just a location? What if they're observing the people inside them? Think about how often the stories describe impossible coincidences. Hallways changing after someone walks through them. Voices leading people in circles. Supplies appearing just when they're needed. Doors opening where there weren't doors before. None of these ideas have ever been confirmed. But together, they create the impression that the backrooms aren't completely random. It's almost as if the environment reacts, not with anger, not with kindness, but with curiosity, as though the maze itself is trying to understand the people trapped within it. Whether that's true or not, no one can say, but once that idea enters your mind, every empty hallway starts to feel just a little different. And just when the backrooms seemed mysterious enough, a new generation of creators transformed them into something even larger. Not a ghost story, not an urban legend, but the aftermath of an experiment that may have gone terribly wrong. Chapter 4. The moment everything changed. For a while, the backrooms were just another internet creepypasta. People shared theories. Artists drew new levels. Writers imagined impossible creatures hiding in endless hallways. It was fun, creepy, mysterious, but it still felt like fiction. Then, something happened that completely changed how millions of people viewed the backrooms. Instead of asking, what if the backrooms were real? Someone asked a much better question. If they were real, how would they have been discovered? That simple change transformed the entire story. Because suddenly, the backrooms weren't magic. They weren't haunted. They weren't supernatural. They were an accident. The experiment that was never supposed to happen. Imagine it's the late 1980s. A research facility sits in the middle of nowhere. From the outside, it looks ordinary. Inside, scientists are attempting something impossible. Not time travel, not artificial intelligence, something even stranger. They're trying to create more space. Think about that for a second. What if humanity could create a place that existed outside our own reality? An endless storage facility, a place with infinite room. No more overcrowded cities, no more warehouses running out of space, no limits. It sounds revolutionary until the experiment succeeds. For a split second, reality tears open. Not with a massive explosion, not with dramatic flashing lights, just a quiet mistake. A doorway appears. Beyond it, yellow walls, buzzing lights, endless rooms, a place that shouldn't exist. And from that moment on, nothing is ever the same. A place that doesn't follow physics. One of the reasons the backrooms feel so unsettling is because they completely ignore the rules we rely on every day. Think about your own house. Even with your eyes closed, you could probably picture where every room is. You know the kitchen is next to the living room. You know where the bathroom is. You know how many steps it takes to reach the front door. Now imagine waking up tomorrow and your hallway has moved. Your bedroom is suddenly twice as large. The staircase leads somewhere different. A door that used to open into your garage now opens into another hallway. That's the kind of reality people describe inside the backrooms. Space no longer behaves like space. Rooms can be far larger on the inside than they appear from the outside. Some corridors seem to stretch forever. Others loop back to where they started without ever turning. There are stories of people walking in perfectly straight lines for hours, only to arrive exactly where they began. Not because they got lost, but because the building itself refused to let them leave. Imagine realizing the place you're trapped inside isn't just confusing, it's impossible. The fear of empty places. Here's something interesting. Why do images of empty schools, abandoned shopping malls, or silent airports make so many people uncomfortable? There's usually nothing dangerous in those pictures. No monsters, no violence, no obvious threat. Yet millions of people describe the exact same feeling. A strange mixture of nostalgia, loneliness, and unease. Psychologists often refer to places like these as liminal spaces. They're places designed for transition. Hallways connect rooms. Airports connect countries. Hotels connect journeys. These places are never meant to be destinations. They're meant to be passed through. So when you remove all the people, something feels wrong. Your brain expects movement, conversation, life. Instead, there's only silence. The backrooms take that feeling and stretch it into infinity. That's why they feel so believable, because you've already experienced a tiny piece of them. Maybe walking through an empty office after everyone had gone home. Maybe visiting your school during summer vacation. Maybe checking into a hotel late at night when every corridor seemed deserted. The backrooms don't invent a new fear. They magnify one that already exists. The most dangerous enemy isn't a monster. Ask someone who's never heard of the backrooms what the biggest danger probably is. Most people answer the same way: the monsters. But strangely enough, some versions of the lore suggest the creatures aren't what kills most people. Think about it. No food, almost no clean water, no natural sunlight, no way of measuring time, no certainty that you're even walking in the right direction. Eventually, your body begins to fail. Sleep becomes impossible. Your sense of time disappears. Your memories become blurred. You start forgetting small things, then bigger things. How many days have you been walking? What did your house look like? What was your mother's voice like? Eventually, would you even remember your own name? It's a terrifying thought, not because something takes your life, but because the backrooms slowly take you, piece by piece, memory by memory, until the person who entered those yellow hallways no longer exists. But if the backrooms are endless, there's one question that almost every fan asks eventually. If the backrooms really are infinite, has anyone reached the end? Some believe there is no end. Others think there's an exit hidden somewhere beyond the thousands of imagined levels. And then there are those who believe something even stranger, that the deeper you travel, the less the backrooms resemble a building at all, as if reality itself begins to break apart. Walls stop making sense. Gravity behaves differently. Entire landscapes appear where rooms should be. It's almost as though the yellow hallways were only the surface, and beneath them lies something far older, something humanity was never meant to discover. And that's where the stories become truly bizarre. Because beyond the offices, beyond the pools, beyond every familiar place, fans began imagining entities, creatures that may have been wandering those endless halls long before the first human ever arrived. And whether those creatures are real depends entirely on which version of the backrooms you choose to believe. Chapter 5. Are there really monsters? By now, you've probably noticed something. We've spent almost this entire video talking about the backrooms, without really talking about the creatures. And that isn't an accident. Because one of the biggest misconceptions about the backrooms is that they're all about monsters. They're not. In fact, the original story never mentioned any creatures at all. Just you and an endless maze that didn't want to let you leave. The monsters came later, as different writers expanded the universe. Some imagined shadow-like figures hiding around corners. Others described smiling humanoid creatures that appeared only when you looked away. Some created intelligent beings capable of communicating with lost survivors. And over time, hundreds of different entities were added to the lore. But here's something interesting. The more creatures people invented, the more fans began arguing that something important had been lost. Because the greatest monster was never supposed to be hiding in the hallway. The greatest monster was the hallway itself. The fear of the unknown. Think about your favorite horror movie. The first time you see the monster, it's terrifying. The second time, it's still scary. But by the 10th time, you understand it. You know what it looks like, how it moves, how it attacks. It's no longer unknown. The backrooms work differently. You don't know what's around the next corner. Most of the time, there isn't anything. And somehow, that's even worse. Imagine standing in a hallway that stretches so far you can't see the end. You stare at it for a full minute. Nothing moves. Another minute passes. Still nothing. Then your brain asks a simple question. What if something is standing just beyond where I can see? You don't have proof. You don't need proof. Because your imagination immediately fills the darkness with something far more frightening than any monster could ever be. That's why so many horror fans believe the original backrooms remain the scariest version. Not because they contain the most danger, but because they force you to imagine it. Why we can't stop thinking about the backrooms. It's been years since that original image appeared online. Normally, internet trends disappear within weeks. Yet somehow, people are still talking about the Backrooms, still creating new artwork, new games, new stories, new theories. Why? Maybe it's because everyone has experienced a liminal space without realizing it. Maybe you've stayed late at school and walked through silent hallways. Maybe you've been the last customer inside a supermarket just before closing. Maybe you've checked into a hotel after midnight and noticed how strangely empty the corridors felt. Nothing dangerous happened, but something still felt wrong. The Backrooms gave that feeling a name, and once you have a name for something, it becomes much harder to forget. One last theory. Before we end this video, there's one theory that perfectly captures why the Backrooms have fascinated so many people. What if the Backrooms aren't a place? What if they're a mistake? Think about it. Computers glitch, video games glitch, phones freeze, even satellites fail. Every system humans have ever created eventually makes mistakes. So why do we assume reality is different? What if, somewhere, hidden beneath everything we know, reality occasionally makes an error? Not often, not enough for scientists to notice, but just enough for one unlucky person to disappear. No dramatic headlines, no explanation. One moment they're there, the next, gone. Of course, there's absolutely no evidence that anything like this has ever happened. The Backrooms are a work of collaborative internet fiction, built over years by thousands of creative people. But the idea remains powerful because it plays on a universal fear. Not the fear of dying, the fear of becoming lost. Completely, irretrievably lost. The next time you walk through an empty building. So here's a thought I'd like to leave you with. The next time you walk through an empty office, or a silent hotel corridor, or a shopping mall just before closing, take a second to look around. Notice how quiet everything is. Listen to the hum of the lights. Look down that long hallway. For just a moment, your brain might imagine that it keeps going, farther than it should. And maybe you'll remember this video. You'll smile. You'll remind yourself that the Backrooms are only a story. Then you'll keep walking. But just before you leave, you might glance back one last time, just to make sure the hallway behind you is still there. So, what do you think? Are the Backrooms just one of the greatest horror stories the internet has ever created? Or do you think there's something deeper behind why so many people are disturbed by empty places? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, tell me one thing. If you no-clipped into the Backrooms, what would be your first plan to survive? Would you keep walking? Would you stay in one place? Or would you start searching for another level? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more deep dives into internet mysteries, horror lore, and unexplained phenomena. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the scariest places are the ones that look completely ordinary.